Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Muhammad wa ahla baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. So last week we left off in greater sins. We're in the chapter about lying. And we covered many different points from one of the books. He brought all the different points about lying. For example, how they're the greater sin, different hadiths about lying. We got to number 37. He said, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi said, avoid falsehood, for it may appear to be a way to salvation, whereas in reality it leads to destruction. So someone might see that they get a lot of benefits in telling lies, but the destructive effects it has on society and on one's own spirituality is more than enough to refrain from lying. A lot of times the person doesn't look at the outcome, they just look at the short-term effect, but they don't look at the outcome of that sin. They just say, oh, I can gain something really quick, maybe make some extra money or something else, but they don't see the outcome. So we always have to look past this life, and we have to make sure we look at the effects of our afterlife too, because the lies have effect on our own soul more, and it has effect on society too and other people. We said that Imam Ali alayhi salam said every Muslim is supposed to avoid friendship and brotherhood with a compulsive liar, because one who befriends a liar is also considered a liar. Even if he speaks the truth, he's not trusted. So if we hang out with people who are known to be liars, everyone else will think that we are liars as well. As that we said that the person who goes into the place where they're making iron, the blacksmith, they're going to come out smelling like iron. Or the person who goes into perfume shop will come out smelling nice like some perfume. So the company we are around, it also has effect on us. So we shouldn't hang out with liars. Even if we ourselves don't lie, people will bunch us together with that. They would say, oh, he is a liar as well. The next one, number 39, brings two ayat about, he says the liar is kept away from truth and reality. Surah Zumar, ayat 3, surely Allah does not guide him aright who is a liar, ungrateful. Next, Surah 40, ayat 34, surely Allah does not guide him who is an extravagant, a liar. So we see that the liar is deprived of Allah's guidance and Allah's mercy. And we said that the curse of Allah is on those who tell lies. We're not talking about those forced to tell lies, but those who lie intentionally and will have the will to lie. He said, the liar has a human form only in this world. In Barzakh, he does not retain the human form. While describing the scenes of Mi'raj, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi told Fatima to Zahra alayha salam, on the night of Mi'raj, I saw a woman whose head resembled that of a pig, and her body was like that of a donkey. It was because she spread discord and told lies. So a lot of time in hereafter, these things will manifest in the animalistic nature of the sin, and they will take on this type of form in hereafter. And sometimes those who are close to Allah, Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and some awliya Allah, they can actually see these type of things in they see the reality of the people for the way that it is. I remember reading one narration about them making Hajj, and one of the companions said to the Imam, oh, mashallah, look at how many people are making Hajj here. And he said, I only see a few people here. The rest I see they're like animal nature. They are here, but they have this animal nature. So one of the sins of lying in the afterlife, it may result in this, as the Prophet saw this lady in Mi'raj. He said there's different degrees for lying. Shahid Thani, other mujtahideen, they considered this type of every kind of falsehood to be haram and a greater sin. But in the traditions, we see they have different grades. Among them, different type of kinds of lies. Some are greatest of the sins, and some are different degrees. We could say that they're all greater sins, but they have different levels. Similarly, we can say we look at Jahannam, the hellfire, has different levels. It's all hellfire. Or Jannah, all different levels, but all is Jannah. So all these are under the same category as a greater sin, but there's different levels. The first one that we'll talk about is falsehood against Allah, Prophet, and Imams. Said the worst type of falsehood is the one who utters a lie against Allah, His Prophet, and the Imams. In the Quran, Surah 16, ayat 116 to 117, it says, "And for what your tongues describe, do not utter the lie, saying this is lawful and this is unlawful, in order to forge a lie against Allah. Surely those who forge a lie against Allah shall not prosper. A little enjoyment, and they shall have a painful punishment." Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, to attribute falsehood to Allah and His Prophet is the greatest sin. Imam Sadiq also told Abu Nu'man, he said, don't attribute falsehood to us. Such a lie will expel you from the upright faith. So we see that other religions, for example, those who are opposed to Islam, not opposed to Islam, opposed to their prophet, they made lies and deviated many people, such as in Arabic call him Bolus, but in English Paul. He made a lot of lies and deviated away from the teachings of Isa alayhi salam, and now he's known as like the founder of the Christianity. The same thing happened with many religions, and we also find unfortunately, amongst the Muslims, we find, for example, Muawiyah was having like a hadith factory, making a hadith, paying people to narrate things, saying that they heard them from the Prophet. Every attribute or merit that Imam Ali alayhi salam had, he would pay someone to make false narration to attribute that thing to one of the Khulafa, for example. And we have people like Abu Huraira, who would lie so much against the Prophet that even Umar ibn al-Khattab beat him, And if Omar beats you, then you must be a very bad individual. So knowing that, what he has done himself, and he says that you are doing so bad against the Prophet and lying against the Prophet and Islam, that even he decided to beat him. It was famous, he would say that he would take the hadith from out of his pocket. He would just make up as he would go. There's many books written about him and his life, and these type of things people did for money. They just were looking at dunya. They don't care about akhirah, because if someone really cared about akhirah and they really believed that Allah is watching them, and they believed in Islam, they believed in accountability on the day of judgment, there is no way that they would lie against Allah, Rasulullah, or Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. But some people, they don't care. They only care about this life, even though on the outside they may appear to care, but the inside they don't. They are only after worldly gains. He said that this hadith, don't attribute falsehood to us, Ahlul Bayt, such a lie will expel you from the upright faith of Islam. The author said this means that even if one single falsehood is attributed to the Imams, then the light of faith is extinguished from the heart. It's such a serious sin that if one intentionally commits it during the month of Ramadan, then his fast is invalidated. He said every type of falsehood, the next chapter title, he says, every kind of lie and every method of speaking of an untruth is haram. Just as it is haram to speak a lie with the tongue, it is similarly haram to write something false. So when we think of lying, we think mostly of someone speaking a lie, telling a lie. But you can also write lies and write falsehood and make bad things and bad ideas, and those books continue on and on to spread falsehood and misguide people. As we say, we have sadaqah jariyah. You do a good action and it continues and continues on, and you get benefit and benefit from all of those people that you helped. For example, you built a hospital, a school, wrote a book. People are getting guided by that book and they get benefit. It's on the opposite side. If someone writes falsehood and it misguides people and it continues to misguide people over the years, then they will be responsible for misguiding all those people. He says, even to point a finger in expressing a lie is haram. So even with body language, to tell a lie is haram. For example, if a person who does not pray is asked by another person, have you made salat? And he nods his head. He doesn't say anything, but he alludes to that he has done it. I said this is the same as lying, same sin. Also, propagating the words of a liar while being aware that they are untrue is haram and is supporting a liar. A lot of time we have to be careful. We are sharing things, but we are also promoting those things when we are sharing them. And a lot of time is better to not share, because maybe the other people are not even aware of that thing. They should just leave it and let it die down. Just let it die out instead of giving it more attention. I remember one of the late Maharaja, someone made a lie against him, and his followers came and they said, such and such newspaper has printed this false story about you and it's a lie. And then you should respond to that person. You should respond to that newspaper. And he said, how many followers does this newspaper have? Like, how many newspapers do they print in that time? How far does it reach? And they said, oh, maybe this newspaper reaches 2,000 people, for example. He said, okay, so 2,000 people will know about this. But if I say something about it, then how many, followers do I have that follow me in taqlid? Then let's just say, for example, 500,000. Then he says, okay, 2,000 people will know about it, but if I respond to this, there will be 500,000 people who know about this lie and who see this lie. So he chose to ignore those people. Attributing falsehood to Allah, the Prophet, and Imams means that one fabricates a saying and attributes it to them intentionally. For example, we say that the Holy Prophet had said such and such thing while knowing that it is an absolute lie. Or to say that such and such is a Quranic verse, when it is certain, it's not part of the Quran. But we make up something and say, this is in Quran. I remember someone telling me about something, and she was like, tell my kids this, it's haram. Tell them it's haram. Tell them it's in Quran. Tell them the Maharaja said it. It's in the Quran. And I was like, it's not in the Quran. I mean, it's in the Hadith. I was like, no, this thing is not in Hadith. Our Maharaja said still. I was like, no, it's not. They wanted me to lie to their kids, so the kids didn't do that. But I was like, whatever you're talking about, it was some American custom, but it wasn't haram. It's not, what is haram is haram, what is halal is halal. You cannot say something is haram just because you don't like it. So they were trying to get me to say, oh, tell them it's in Quran, tell them it's in Hadith, but we cannot do that. Even if the aim or the intention is to keep someone on this path or straight path, we cannot make up and say this thing is haram and attribute it to the Prophet or attribute it to Quran. We cannot make lies up as we go. We have to stick to what they say, and what they said is halal, and what they said is haram is haram. He says it is haram to distort the apparent and true meanings of the Quranic verses and traditions just to suit one's desire or to prove a point. So sometimes someone wants to gain something. So they play around with the verses in order to make it sound like it's supporting what their idea or what they want to do, but they distort the verses or the interpretation of the verses, and they try to draw incorrect conclusions from these verses. Also, incorrect translation of the holy verses and traditions is also a falsehood. This is, if someone is doing this intentionally, trying to hide something. For example, there was one, when I first was learning Arabic, it was pointed out to me, and it was something that made me really want to pursue learning Arabic. So, for example, in Quran, in Surah Yasin, ayat 12, it says, for everything we have contained it or held it in a, it says, fi imam mubin, in a manifest clear imam. It's clear there, imam mubin in Arabic. But in translation, it says in a book, in a clear book. This would be fi kitabim mubin. What is it? That's not what Allah says. Allah says fi imamim mubin. So when I looked at this, I said, why did they put book when it says imam? And when we look at the tafsir of the ayat, it is come to say this. One of the companions said, "Is this the Torah?" He said, "No, it's not Torah." The other one says, "Is it Injil?" He said, "No, this is not Injil." He says, "Okay, is it Quran?" The other one says, Prophet says, "No, it is not Quran. This knowledge is held in Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam." So we see that when someone is hiding verses, they are hiding the meaning. They don't want people to know that it says fi imam mubin. They want them to think that it is fi kitab mubin, that it is a book. But they are playing with the translation for those people who don't know. I remember also one of my friends showed me, one of the Iranian brothers showed me in the Spanish Quran. It could have been misprint, it could have been intentional, I don't know. But in the Fatiha for it says wala dolin. So it said for, I have to remember, it says may Allah guide us. It said, guide us to the straight path, those of whom your favor is upon, not those who your wrath is on, and not of those who have gone astray. But in the Spanish version, they put, and not like the Iranians. But the word for Iranian and the word for gone astray were very close. So like with one accent or some other letter, it could be it could have been a misprint. But he was saying, look, he said, everyone in their Fatiha in the Spanish Quran is saying that they ask Allah not to make them like the Iranians. So, this distortion of the text. Imagine how many people maybe thought that's what was in there. Who knows? He says, it's for this very reason that most people are not eligible to speak from Mimbar. It's not an easy task to translate the ayats and traditions and explain their meanings in the speech. He said there is need to exercise utmost caution in such risky situations. One who has not studied the rules of Arabic grammar properly will inadvertently misunderstand the saying of the Prophet and the Imams. He's bound to err even while explaining the apparent meaning. Therefore, the speakers must make it a point to say only the apparent meaning of the ayat and traditions. They must especially abstain from the exegesis of the ambiguous verses. It's important to, research what the Ma'sumin said about these verses and not just formulate one's own opinion about them and just make up what you think it means. We have to go to the house where the revelation spread from, where the revelation descended down. It came down and it spread out from there. And many people fall into a lot of error and mistake when they start saying, I feel, I think, I believe it means such and such. This is where the problems come. If one is in doubt, then he should abandon speaking about that topic until he has gained certainty in that topic and not make up things as they go. The problem is people's ego. They don't want to seem like they don't know, so they will make up things in order to look like they do know. And Imam Ali alayhi salam said, the one who gives up saying, I don't know, will meet destruction. So we do not know all of the things. When someone asks and we don't know, there's no shame in saying, I don't know this. Let's find out together. Let's refer to someone who does know. And this is also why it should not be a big rush for people to go and try to get on Mimbar. They should make the studies first. They should get themselves prepared. One of the Mujtahideen told me in Karbala, he was telling me to make intention to study and to guide, for example, 1 million people. If you study and you're working towards that and you die in that path, even though you have not taught anybody yet, but your intention was to study to guide 1 million people, Allah will give you a reward for guiding those million people, inshallah. He says a lot of time you will rush. For example, he said, maybe I write a book, but then later on, you study a few more years, and then you see that your book could have been much better and you had more information. And this is true. This is true. I can attest to that, that the more you learn, the better your output will be. The same thing is, don't rush for Mimbar. Don't worry about Mimbar. Just focus on your studies. And when you reach a good level, then you are needed, then go. It's different. Sometimes people are needed and they don't have anyone there, then the responsibility comes to go to Mimbar or to go fulfill some duties. But the key thing is that we have to know our limitations. We have to know, what we can do, what we're capable of, and what we're not capable of. For example, someone comes and says, oh, I have a question, for example, about ahkam of nikah. And the person has never studied ahkam of nikah, of marriage or divorce. And then they try to answer and they have no idea what they're doing. They should not do that. They know their limitations and say, you know what, I have studied fasting and I have studied salat and khums and hajj and this, but I haven't gotten to this yet. Inshallah, I'll find out for you and come back. So this is why he's saying it's not as easy as people think it is. I remember one scholar was telling me that this guy used to say, oh, what you guys do, you think it's hard, but it's really easy. Oh, you go up there and you talk and you give a Jummah and you do the speech and majlis and oh, that's easy. Anybody can do that, but you make it like you're the only one can do that. And it was like, oh, okay. So, okay, it's your turn. You go and you go give it a shot, and we'll sit down and let you go up on the mimbar. It's like, oh, no big deal. I can do it. No, that's easy job. So they say he got up there in front of all those people. Everyone's looking at him, and they say he forgot his own name. He couldn't remember anything. And after that, he came down and he was humbled. He realized then the thing. And sometimes the people see, there's when people go to the mimbar that they think it's maybe a 30-minute talk or 40-minute talk and that's it, but they don't see the 5-6 hours or days that the person put into preparing those talks. Anyhow, back to the discussion. He says about falsehood attributed to Allah. He says an example of this kind of lie is when a lying person, in order to prove his statement, he says, Allah is my witness, I'm speaking the truth. Or Allah knows I'm saying the truth. They swear by Allah, Wallahi, Wallah al-Adim. All of these things. There's a saying of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam who says, one who says Allah knows, whereas Allah does not. Meaning that he knows the opposite of the thing. Allah knows the truth of it. He doesn't confirm the falsehood. The heavens shudder at the might and the anger of Allah. So it shows that we shouldn't swear and take things lightly and swear by Allah and these type of things. In another hadith, says Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, when a man says Allah knows while what he says is a lie, Allah tells him, didn't you find anybody else you could have attributed this falsehood to? You came and attributed falsehood to, it's like Allah saying, you came and attributed falsehood to me, to Allah. You couldn't find someone else. You came and attributed to your creator, like the audacity to do that. I remember one brother used to tell me in his country, when they wanted to tell the lie, they said, I swear on the grave of my brother-in-law, because then that they didn't care about their brother-in-law. So in that case, that would be how they would tell their lie. It comes to my mind when we see this, when Hadith says, Allah tells them, didn't you find anybody else to attribute this lie to? We have to make sure that we don't. A lot of time people get in the habit, they're wallahi, and they always swearing by Allah, and at the same time they're swearing by Allah on a lie. In some traditions, it's mentioned that when a person makes Allah a witness for a falsehood, Allah says, didn't you find anyone weaker than me to be a witness for your falsehood? So unfortunately, this is a common problem. A lot of people are always saying, wallahi, I swear by Allah, and they do this for everything. Unfortunately, it's a very bad habit. Also, when people do this, a lot of times when you hear someone say, trust me, or I swear, then it kind of raises a red flag, Why do you have to tell me that I need to trust you? Or why do you have to tell me that you swear by Allah? That means there's some that they're thinking that we are having some doubt about that. Also, it says against the Prophet and Imams, it implies fabricating a narration and then attributing it to the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. In the same way that it is haram to knowingly propagate a weak tradition, however, if one is sure of the proper references, then he can quote the tradition and attribute it to the Ma'sumin. Instead of saying the Prophet or Imam said such and such, one of the ways is you can say that such and such book has quoted them, or it has been narrated that they have said such and such. Instead of saying, like with absolute certainty that, okay, Prophet said this, or we can say, for example, Al-Kafi says that the Prophet said this, or it's narrated that the Prophet said such and such, in this type of way. He said numerous traditions are found in the books, and one is not sure whether they are authentic or not. In this case, one can give the name of the narrator and also provide the title of the book as a reference. However, one must be certain that the tradition is not against the necessities of faith, Duriyat al-Islam. If there is anything against the basic principles of religion, it's most certainly fabricated narration. For example, we know that we have the wajib salat every day, 5 prayer that we make, and then it says, okay, that we only pray 4 prayers, something different, or we see something that goes direct contrast to Quran or the principles of our religion, then we know that it is fake and we should not narrate it unless it's under this topic of discussion, and we should say that such and such book said this, or such and such author or narrator said this. What do you think about this narration? He said there shouldn't be any disrespect of the Ma'sumin alayhimus salam, nor should the tradition be against reason. Lastly, as a precautionary measure, one must quote only from the reliable books. So something against reason. So we have to look at the narrations, and if it's something possible to happen, then we cannot just discard it. But if it's something that is impossible, and or something that, yeah, it would be impossible, we can say, then we should discard that narration. But some things we maybe think that are impossible when they actually are possible. For example, someone sees narration that Imam Qadam alayhi salam speak with a lion, or Imam Ali alayhi salam spoke with a serpent. And we say that is impossible. People cannot talk with animals, but we have it proven from past that it has happened before with Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. So this is enough proof to prove that it has happened before. So it is possible to happen again, and we cannot discard some of that, though we cannot discard those narrations just because we haven't seen anyone who has been able to communicate with an animal, for example. Imam Bakr alayhi salam said, do not quote a narration except from a reliable authority. Otherwise, you will fabricate a great falsehood, and falsehood debases you in the sight of Allah and his creatures. We have to be careful with the narrations because if we fabricate a falsehood and people follow that falsehood, then we are held accountable for that. So we have to be very careful and investigate the things that we are propagating or teaching or share on social media. A lot of time people share a lot of quotes from imams. This actually happened to a friend of mine. He wrote up something very nice and published it, or posted it on Facebook. Someone took this and put Imam Ali said this at the end, and the saying was very nice, and then people shared it all over the place. And my friend was like, this is something I wrote, and he put the screenshot of what he wrote, and then the people were sharing this with no source, no book, no author, no page number, no nothing. They're just sharing it everywhere. And this is happening a lot with, we have to be careful. If we cannot find the source for the narration, we should, even if it sounds nice, we shouldn't use it as far as spreading it to other people or taking it as an actual saying of the Imam. We can take benefit from it if it's a nice saying, but we shouldn't attribute it to Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam if we don't know where it came from. So if someone sends us something, we should ask them, where does that come from? What book did you get that from? And that they should include these sources when they share these things instead of just sharing anything. See, Imam Ali alayhi salam had a sermon, and he says, do not quote everything circulating among the common people. It suffices to be a falsehood. Hence, whenever quoting a tradition, is necessary to mention its source. Not a single word must be deleted or added. Not even a single word must be replaced, because in all such cases, it would amount to attributing falsehood to the ma'sumin. So we shouldn't alter the tradition in any way. We should say it exactly how it is. Or if we are paraphrasing, we should say that we are, paraphrasing this thing. Says the Prophet is reported to have said, one who attributes something to me which I have not said shall sit in the fire. Also, this is for those people who intentionally do this. It's not for someone who is, unintentionally or makes a mistake or in the wording or says something. This is for those people who intentionally make narrations and attribute them to the Prophet. As I mentioned some of those earlier that we had in history. Another person writes in his book, a person came to Aga Muhammad Ali, a pious scholar and author, and said, I dreamt that I am tearing at the flesh of Imam Hussein with my teeth. What is the interpretation of this dream? He thought a while and he said, you must be a preacher relating masa'ib, or tragedies. The man said, yes, I am. So the man told him, either give up your profession or only quote from reliable books. So this is the other thing. When we narrate musibah, we need to look, at what we are saying and where did it come from. There's a lot of things are falsely propagated, and they are only said to make people cry, but it's not really. Maybe it's really not what happened. Or some people, I have heard other lecturers, someone would told me about some other lecturers, and they said, you tell me any place in the world and I will tell you a story about what happened there with imams. And they make up a lot of wild stories about things that they are definitely concocted, that you can tell, and they will make up things like just like this in order to, and it's emotional and to make the people move, but it has no basis. So we have to rely on the maqatil, or the narrations of the tragedies of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and not make up our own type of stories. When people are doing musibah, it is okay if they say, for example, I can imagine it as if it was like this, that Imam is looking at his daughter and daughter is looking at Imam, and paint a picture for someone to understand. But they're saying, I would imagine if it is in this way, not that this is exactly what happened, you know, that this happened like this, but they're painting a picture of what they have read from Musibah, and they are telling a story. And we can imagine in those moments, one may, look through their child before they leave, and the moments of of how that must have been, and describe it in a way as if, but not in definite terms. He says another similar antidote is recorded in the book. This is Shafal Sadur. A preacher was reciting a majlis in the presence of Ayatollah Al-Hajj Muhammad Ibrahim Kalbasi. He was saying that Imam Hussein alayhi salam said, Zainab, O Zainab. On hearing this, Ayatollah Kalbasi said loudly, to that person, may Allah break your mouth. The Imam did not say Zainab twice, he only said it once. And we see that, like the precaution that some people would take, that said, no, he only said this once, he did not say it twice. You are saying that Imam said something that he didn't say, for example. It's very good to be precautious when relating these tragedies, and stick to what is narrated, and make sure that the things that are being said on the minbar have a factual basis, and not some stories that have been handed down from generation to generation but don't have the basis in the books. For example, as I was saying, that while reciting the tragedies of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, we can say it is as if it were like this. Or an example, for example, the water recited lines of poetry to Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, like this, as if the water were to say this to Abbas. These are poetic expressions, and these are not factual things, but it's something that moves the emotions, and it is as if the water would have spoken out to Abbas. But we know that this didn't happen, but it's as if it would have happened in that situation. We shouldn't put things in our definite terms, and we should stick to reading the maqatil, the famous ones about what happened to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He says, however, it's permitted to render the tradition one's own words, but it is a must that the speaker should be well versed with the language and also be capable of understanding the usage. Thus, it's allowed to relate the contents of the tradition in one's own words. So we're saying it's Imam says something to the effect of this, or we are saying that paraphrasing the Imam, is saying this. He says, when it's not disrespectful to the Ma'sumin, poetry could be rendered into prose. In the same way, the past event could be quoted in the present tense. For example, if one intends to say a person came to the Imam and said, he could say, the person on the minbar is drawing a picture, painting a picture for the people who are listening. So he's making it sound like it's happening right now. This event is happening now, not in the past. They are bringing you to that event and placing you inside the event and showing you that this is what is going on now. So imagine now. So instead of saying a person came to the Imam and said, you could say a person comes to the Imam and tells him, making it in the present tense. But it says, however, the audience should be aware that what is being related in the present tense actually has already happened. And we know this. Everyone knows that these events happened a long time ago, and that's understood. He said, in the same way, if the traditions say that the Imam has prohibited something, the speaker could say, the Imam says, don't do it. This is in his own words, but is conveying the same meaning because the Imam has prohibited that. It says another type of falsehood is false oath, false evidence, and escaping from testifying in an Islamic court. This type of falsehood is also confirmed as a greater sin. Each one of these has their details. He said, to lie is surely a great sin with obvious evil effects due to the harm it can cause others. The more harmful a lie, the more serious is the sin associated with it. For example, a lie causing monetary loss is definitely less serious than one that causes loss of life. So lying has degrees due to the damage caused, but all those fall under that category of greater sins. Just different grades, different levels. For example, one lie may be so small that it doesn't harm anyone, except the one who tells it. It will hurt him by adding a greater sin to his book of deeds. It has spiritual ramifications, and it will build the habit of lying in the person who tells the lie. Another type of lie will cause loss of property, loss of rights to a person, they lose their rights, or monetary loss. And another type can cause harm or injury to a person, or even loss of life, or it could cause them their loss of life behind a prison cell. For example, someone lied on another person and said they committed the murder when in fact the other person did. They could lose their life by being behind bars. Some lies can even corrupt the whole society. I mean, look at those who lied against Allah and they deviated whole nations into believing false doctrines, for example. So all of these have grades and levels, and some are more serious than the other, but all of them are different degrees of a greater sin. As we said, Jahannam is bad, and it has all different levels, the first level to the last level, but they are all hellfire. They're all bad. All of these lies, whether small or big, are still considered a greater sin. And there's no such thing as saying, oh, it's a little white lie. They say, like, it's not going to hurt anybody, not going to harm anyone. Inshallah, we'll continue this topic next week. Inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli.